What is something that a fictional character said that stuck with you? Serious. This is the worst day of your life so far. Homer Simpson. I wish it need not have happened in my time, said Frodo. So do I, said Gandalf. And so do all who live to see such times. But that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us. My favorite Gandalf quote comes from the same conversation. Frodo, it's a pity Bilbo didn't kill him when he had the chance. Gandalf, pity. It was pity that stayed Bilbo's hand. Many that live deserve death. Some that die deserve life. Can you give it to them? Frodo. Do not be too eager to deal out death and judgment. Even the very wise cannot see all ends. When a child first catches adults out when it first walks into his great little head, that adults do not always have divine intelligence, that their judgments are not always wise, their thinking true, their sentence is just his world falls into panic desolation. The gods are fallen, and all safety gone. And there is one sure thing about the fall of gods, they do not fall a little, they crash and shatter or sink deeply into green muck. It is a tedious job to build them up again, they never quite shine. And the child's world is never quite whole again. It is an aching kind of growing east of Eden. John Steinbeck. Do you remember the last time we had a quiet drink together? Just the two of us. I had a milkshake. Indiana Jones to his father in The Last Crusade. There's triplets in my mind. The woman I am. The woman I must be. The woman I long to be. Like all sisters, they tend to be at odds with one another. From time to precious time. Divinity Original Sin 2 minus Sibyl. Edit, I edited the quote to be exactly as in DOS 2. Just for the sake of all those who loved it unedited. She says that quote in Act Fort Joy. When you ask about Stingtail and follow specific dialogue options. DOS 2 was fun. But the phenomenal writing is what really sold me on that game. The narrator is perfectly voiced. Every main character is excellent. And their stories were gripping. Some plot lines were paced better than others to be sure. And there were a few moments that fell a little flat. But overall the whole written side of the game was amazing. Don't waste your time looking back. We are not going that way. Ragnar Lothbrok in Vikings. You can ask any doctor. Sometimes it seems like patients just hang on until everyone's had a chance to say goodbye. JD. Scrubs. By coincidence, I first watched that episode with that particular quote in it the night after my grandmom died. She died whilst I was on the plane to see her and say my goodbyes, and I missed her by mere hours. That particular line had me on the floor weeping like a baby. Edit, super late to the party here, but thank you all for your support, sharing your stories, and for the awards. You'll truly rock. Statistics never matter to the individual Perry Cox. I'm sorry for your loss. My grandmother died making direct eye contact with me as I told her how much she meant to me. It was beautiful and an honor, but it didn't lessen the pain much. Money doesn't change people. It just makes it easier for them to be who they are. Grandpa Abraham Simpson. Oddly enough, the one that stuck with me was also with Abe. I used to be with it, but they changed what it was. What I was with, isn't it? And what's it, is strange and scary. Sucking at something is the first step towards being sorta good at something. Jake the dog. A pen isn't mightier than a sword. Pens do not do battle, nor swords poetry. Mighty is the hand that knows when to pick up the pen or pick up the sword. We Grathfals. Sin, young man, is when you treat people like things, including yourself. That's what sin is. Granny Weether Wax. My first time. Afghanistan. We were moving through a house and suddenly a man was there and I shot him in the stomach. Yeah, that's a real war story. There are never any good stories like in movies, they're shit. A man was there. Boom. Stomach. I was so scared I didn't pull the trigger again for the rest of the day. I thought, well, that's it. Bacho. You put a bullet in someone. You're not you anymore. You'll never be you again. But then you wake up the next morning and you're still you. And you realize that was you all along. You just didn't know. From the 4th episode of Chernobyl. This show was so full of great quotable lines. One of my favorites is by Lagasov. Every lie we tell incurs a debt to the truth. Sooner or later this debt is paid. Pride is not the opposite of shame, but its source. True humility is the only antidote to shame. Uncle Ira. This is a quote that stuck with me the most. Ong and Ira were slowly walking together while descending a tunnel, earthbending in front of them as they went, with the intent to reach an underground cave complex to rescue Katara and Zuko. At this point in the series, Zuko had never been anything but an antagonist to Aang, and because Ira was Zuko's uncle, the two hadn't ever had a real talk. Aang, so Toph thinks you give pretty good advice, and great tea. Ira, the key to both is proper aging. What's on your mind? Aang, well, I met with this guru who was supposed to help me master the avatar state and control this great power, but to do it, I had to let go of someone I love, and I just couldn't. Ira, perfection and power are overrated. I think you are very wise to choose happiness and love. Aang, what happens if we can't save anyone and beat Azula without the avatar state? What if I'm not powerful enough? Ira, I do not know the answer. Sometimes, life is like this dark tunnel. You can't always see the light at the end of the tunnel, but if you just keep moving, natural light shines through cracks in the stones in front of them as the tunnel gives way to a large cavern complex full of glowing green crystals. Ira, smiling, you will come to a better place. Do not mistake my silence for a lack of grief. Kratos to Atreus. Along that line of feeling, you mistake my choice not to feel as a reflection of my not caring, while I assure you the truth is precisely the opposite. Spock. Edit autocorrect strikes again. But if we stop, if we accept the person we are when we fall, the journey ends. That failure becomes a destination. To love the journey is to accept no such end. I have found, through painful experience, that the most important step a person can take is always the next one. Dalina Carlin, Oathbringer. Every day, it gets a little easier, but you have to do it every day. That's the hard part, but it does get easier. Thank you, wise running monkey. I think earlier in the show you see the monkey running with an older lady, and in the scene, when the monkey says that, he is running alone. Some people are so far behind in the race that they actually believe they're leading. Corrado Soprano reminds me of the Dutch cyclist who thought she won the gold medal in the Olympics when in fact there was an Austrian competitor alone far in front. That was an insane performance by the woman who won. Like the best of the best, and you left them in the dust. Remarkable. We all need friends. Old timer. We die alone, but we live among men. John Marston reminds me of, why are you doing this, Doc? Because Wyatt Earp is my friend. Heck, I got lots of friends. I don't. There are so many good Doc Holliday quotes. Why, Johnny Ringo, you look like someone just walked over your grave. We started a game we never got to finish. Blood for blood. Remember? Oh, that. I was just fooling about. I wasn't. People aren't thinking about you the way that you're thinking about you. Alexis Rose. Thanks for all the awards and upvotes. And no, the quote isn't from AXL Rose. LOL. It's from Alexis Rose, who's a character on the wonderful Schitt's Creek. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's amazing. I loved her character arc over the course of the show. I really loved her at the end. It is a curious thing, the death of a loved one. We all know that our time in this world is limited, and that eventually all of us will end up underneath some sheet, never to wake up. And yet it is always a surprise when it happens to someone we know. It is like walking up the stairs to your bedroom in the dark and thinking there is one more stair than there is. Your foot falls down through the air, and there is a sickly moment of dark surprise as you try and readjust the way you thought of things. Lee Money Snicket. A man's emotions are what define him. Control is the hallmark of true strength. To lack feeling is to be dead, but to act on every feeling is to be a child. Dalina Carlin. Dalina has the best quotes in the Cosmere. Sometimes a hypocrite is nothing more than a man in the process of changing. The most important step a man can take is the next one. Ted Lasso. Guys have underestimated me my entire life. And for years, I never understood why. It used to really bother me. But then one day, I was driving my little boy to school and I saw this quote by Walt Whitman, and it was painted on the wall there. It said, "Be curious, not judgmental." I like that. So I get back in my car and I'm driving to work, and all of a sudden it hits me. All them fellas that used to belittle me, not a single one of them were curious. You know, they thought they had everything all figured out, so they judged everything, and they judged everyone. And I realized that they're underestimating me. Who I was had nothing to do with it. And more recently, and I knew right then and there that I was never gonna let anybody get by me without understanding they might be hurting inside. You know, 'cause life it's hard. It's real hard. It's only after we have lost everything that we are free to do anything. Tyler Durden. This helped me get through methamphetamine addiction. Because I indeed lost everything, and the first step into my recovery was finally hitting the very bottom. Can a man be brave? Even he's afraid. That's the only time a man can be brave. Reminds me of the in real life quote. I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. Nelson Mandela. The difference between bravery and stupidity is that the brave man is afraid. It is possible to make no mistakes and still lose. That is not weakness, that is life. Thank you, Captain Pickard. I think this is most critical to understand with regard to others. It's important to understand this regarding yourself, but it's also easier to incorporate all context in judgments of yourself. You should forgive yourself for failures, and that might take some cognitive effort. But you were also present for the whole situation and know all the facts. It can be harder, but no less important, to be compassionate to others when they fail, because you may not have all the context for it. And when you don't have all the context, it's tempting to write off others' failures as them just not doing the right things, or having the right motivations, or whatever. Essentially an extension of the fundamental attribution error link. You can see this all over the internet. Post any story, picture, video, whatever about yourself or someone else failing, and people will come from all corners of the world to tell you how you did this or that wrong, and how the failure was all your fault, and how they've never had any problems because they were smart, strong, motivated, whatever enough to do things this other way. We judge ourselves by our intentions and others by their behavior. Stephen the 1000th. R. Covey. The speed of trust, the one thing that changes everything. I may not have gone where I intended to go, but I think I have ended up where I needed to be. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Edit. Apparently it's a different Douglas Adams work. Dirk Gently. I'm torn between that and Slarty Bartfast's words. Perhaps I'm old and tired, but I think that the chances of finding out what's actually going on are so absurdly remote that the only thing to do is to say, hang the sense of it, and keep yourself busy. I'd much rather be happy than write any day. To which Arthur Dent replies, and are you Slarty Bartfast? No. I think there are people that help you become the person that you end up being, and you can be grateful for them, even if they were never meant to be in your life forever. Diane Nguyen. Bojack Horseman. Saruman believes it is only great power that can hold evil in check. But that is not what I have found. I have found it is the small everyday deeds of ordinary folk that keep the darkness at bay. Simple acts of kindness and love. Gandalf. There's some good in this world, and it's worth fighting for. Everybody's haunted by who they were and who they thought they'd be. Caduceus Clay. Your secret is safe with my indifference. Despite my best efforts to the contrary, it turns out I've won Arthur Morgan. If more of us valued food and cheer and song above hoarded gold, it would be a merrier world. Thorin in The Hobbit. She was the kind of girlfriend God gives you young, so you'll know loss the rest of your life. From Oscar Wilde. Is it better to be born good or to overcome your evil with great struggle? Paarthurnax. If you aim at nothing you will hit nothing. Sensei Ishikawa. Ghost of Tsushima. Edit. Whoops. It was actually that one person in Shanghai. When you look through rose-colored glasses, all the red flags just look like flags. Bojack. Chidi explaining death like a wave returning to the ocean at the ending of The Good Place really hits me every time I read it. Hear it or have a bad mood. That really needs some emotional purging. Picture a wave in the ocean. You can see it. Measure it its height. The way the sunlight refracts when it passes through and it's there. And you can see it. And you know what it is, it's a wave, and then it crashes on the shore and it's gone. But the water is still there. The wave was just a different way for the water to be for a little while. That's one conception of death for a Buddhist. The wave returns to the ocean, where it came from, where it's supposed to be. Youth cannot know how age thinks and feels, but old men are guilty if they forget what it was to be young Albus Dumbledore. As someone who works with middle school and high school students, this one always comes back to me. Never forget what you are. The rest of the world will not. Wear it like armor, and it can never be used to hurt you. Tyrion Lannister. We do have a lot in common. The same earth, the same air, the same sky. Maybe if we started looking at what's the same instead of what's different. Well, who knows. Meowth of Team Rocket. It is important to draw wisdom from many different places. If you take it from only one place, it becomes rigid and stale. Understanding others, the other element and the other nations will help you become whole. Uncle Iroh.